Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod. We have Gabriel Preisser with us. Gabriel Preisser, I would say in French. He is the general director at Opera Orlando. He got the job around 6 years ago, and he didn't know exactly why, but I know why. When I speak to humble people like that, it's their leadership and their performance. So Gabe is also an opera singer. He's actually gonna sing for us probably at the end of the pod. And yeah, studied singing as a living, which is a pretty interesting career choice. I guess it was somewhat natural. And yeah, I'm interested to speak to Gabe today because yeah, it's a different type of guest that we normally have on the pod. Singing is highly creative. Gabe said when we recorded here, it's storytelling on steroids. Me personally, I love going to the opera, and yeah, like Gabe said, closing my eyes, chilling. There's so much data in my CEO brain that it just helps me digest that, and I get a bunch of ideas. All my ideas come there, just like a bunch of folks get their ideas under a hot shower. Like me, I truly relax when I'm there. So really honored and excited for that one. This podcast is brought to you by my podcasting company, which is called podpire.com. If you want to start, scale, or monetize a podcast, I can help you do that. Gabe, welcome to the pod. Can you tell me a bit more about yourself and about Opera Orlando?
Thanks for having me, Charles. It's a pleasure to be on with you today. And yeah, I'm a Florida boy, born and raised. Grew up just outside of Orlando. Went to school at Florida State University for opera. I have to give credit to my high school teachers. My high school choral teacher and drama teacher kind of pushed me in that direction because I knew nothing about opera. I grew up in a small town of Apopka, just outside of Orlando, and I was more of a football player than a singer in those days of my life. But my teachers pointed me in that direction. I fell in love with opera. Like you mentioned, it's storytelling on steroids. You don't sing with the microphone, so you have to learn the technique. I fell in love with the challenge of it, learning foreign languages, singing for 3 hours. It was just really exciting. Then adding the costumes, the orchestra, all the pageantry that kind of goes with opera. I really just fell in love with it. So I've been stuck ever since. I got my master's in opera at University of Houston, sang at different opera companies around the country, and then moved back to Orlando to be close to family. My wife and I wanted to start having kids. And we got involved with the local company here, Opera Orlando, and they put me in charge as CEO back in 2016 to kind of rebrand and really revitalize the company. So we've been around now for 7 years, have grown from a $250,000 annual budget, if you can imagine, back in 2016, to now close to 2.5 million. In the black that entire time, growing our cash reserves to over 300,000. We also started an Opera Orlando endowment just this past year with 2.5 million pledged towards the endowment. So we're off to a good start, and we have a great venue. It was actually just ranked in the top 11 venues in the world. It's called Steinmetz Hall, ranked up there with Sydney Opera House, Teatro San Carlo. So it's a wonderful venue, and we're really fortunate to have it in our backyard here in Orlando.
So Opera Orlando is a private company, right?
We're actually a nonprofit. We're
Okay.
a 501c3 nonprofit, as are all opera companies in the United States. So the majority of our revenue is contributed revenue. We apply for county grants, state grants, city grants, NEA grants. About 30% of our budget is from ticket sales. And opera is an expensive art form to present. We just presented Tosca this past weekend. That was about a $350,000 budget production, and we were fortunate to bring in $150,000 on ticket sales for that production.
Wow. Okay. So far, right? And how much you project that it will bring? And typically, is it fair to say that if you invest 350K, you're gonna get $1 million out of it, which could be like profit margins around 65-ish%, or I'm way out there?
So yeah, unfortunately, we're only bringing in about 40% on ticket sales, right? So we make up the rest of that with applying for grants, either government grants or foundations, family foundations. And then our biggest source of funding is from private donors, individuals who are passionate about opera. So we have donors that will give specifically for a production that we're doing, or specifically to underwrite an artist, or we have donors that are giving just to the organization, our operating support fund. But yeah, all that kind of funnels into the income side to cover the difference of that loss that we would be taking on a production investment.
Right. The actual real estate, is it yours? Do you rent it? Like, how does that go?
Yeah, we rent the performance venue. Our offices are in. I'm right here. I'm in our offices here in a church, very humble setting. And then for our performances, we rent Steinmetz Hall for a week. We move in on a Sunday. We perform Friday and Sunday, so we're just there for a week. But we're hopeful that we can add more performances per production to get a little more of a return on our investment, and potentially rent Steinmetz Hall for 2 weeks, maybe do 2 weekends of performances. And you see that at some of the larger opera companies like Houston Grand Opera, Chicago Lyric. They're doing longer runs, or even running productions in repertory, where they'll switch out productions on a given week.
And if I want to donate, what do I obtain in return? Like, let's say that I just don't want to donate anonymously and I want my company name out there. Do you have packages for that?
Absolutely. Thanks for asking. Yeah, we have donor levels for the private donors that have certain benefits associated. Our entry level is $250 to be what we call an Operaland ambassador. That includes a T-shirt, a name tag. You get to go to our pre-show receptions, which have wine and appetizers, get to meet the cast, get behind-the-scenes access, a theater tour, a shop tour, things of that nature. And that goes all the way up to our top tier donors who are 25,000, even 50,000. They get private dinners with the cast. They get to go golfing with me, whether they want to or not. I don't know. That depends on them. But perks like that. And then separately from that, we have corporate packages for our corporate sponsorships that include advertising in our program books, which is, prime real estate when you think about the types of people that are coming, the clientele that is coming to the opera. We also offer ticket packages to corporate sponsors, whether they want to use it for themselves, for their employees, maybe for some of their clients. So we do have different corporate sponsor levels, and those range from 5,000, again, all the way up to 50,000.
Interesting. Do you think that the opera business, it will scale in an online world, like with VR technology and all of this? Is it still worth people's while to show up to some place physically to experience that show?
It's a great question. Everyone was asking that question during COVID, right? When a lot of opera companies had to shut down. Luckily, Florida opened back up sooner than other places, so we didn't shut down for too long. But that was the question. It was like, will opera survive? And what we found, and I think the entire country is finding this, is people are eager to get back out and incur and experience live experiences, right? So I personally feel there will always be a place for live theater. There will always be a place for live opera. Now, VR will influence the production side. We're seeing a lot more projections. You're seeing some virtual opera experiences. You're seeing some operas made for VR. I think that's all great. But in terms of having live theater experience, for you to feel those goosebumps in an acoustic setting with a live orchestra, with that human experience, will always be there. We'll always want that.
And there's some sort of science to this sound. Well, first, sound, it penetrates the full body and the cells. Second, it does bring back memories, and these memories evoke emotions, and the emotions, they can flow pretty much throughout your body, and I think there can come healings and thoughts that lead to more emotions and memories.
Right.
And I think the therapeutic aspect is immense. Do you use this in your marketing and how you promote the company, the therapeutic aspect of it?
Absolutely. A big part of what we do are education programs. So, I mean, in addition to putting on large scale operas at Steinmetz Hall, we're also going into the retirement centers, singing for our senior citizens. We're going out in the school, singing for kids, introducing them to the arts for the first time. So you have that kind of music therapy side of it, where you have the nostalgia and gosh, I can think just last week when we performed at the Mayflower Retirement Center, I was singing "If I Loved You" from Carousel, and this lady just started bawling right in front of me. I mean, I've never met the lady; she didn't know me before, and afterwards, come to find out, like that was her and her husband's song, right? And her husband has since passed away. So again, I think there's always a place for that, and music, as you say, is very therapeutic. It feeds the soul. It feeds the soul.
So why do you think people have always undervalued the price of music? If we think of technologies like Spotify and Apple Music, you literally pay $10 a month. And on the other side, we see athletes being paid 500 million a year. We see that sometimes in artists as well. Is it because there's so many folks competing in the music market? Because I definitely don't think people undervalue music, just that it's so
Right.
available and so easily available. So why do you think people pay so few for quality music?
I think you hit the nail on the head. The market is oversaturated. Especially if you're looking at what's available online, right? Everything's up on YouTube. You can look up Pavarotti and hear one of the greatest voices ever and just listen to him over and over again on YouTube. And some people probably do that and they don't feel the need to go to live theater. Even the Met, which I love the Met, Metropolitan Opera in New York City, the biggest opera company in the US, some say the best opera company in the world. But when they started doing the Met broadcast, a lot of people were worried about that because now they could go to the opera in the movie theater, and it's like now they're not really feeling the need to go to it in person. So I think our job as a regional opera company is, first of all, we need to make sure we're serving the Orlando area. We're not going to compete with the Met. We're not going to compete with YouTube. I'm not even going to compete with Disney and Universal, who are our neighbors, right? I partner with them. We've done some performances at Universal, right? And they also help us by donating services and equipment. But we need to serve the Orlando community. We need to make sure we're out in the community. That's why our education efforts are so important, our in-school performances, the retirement center performances. We also have a youth company, ages 8 through 18, 28 kids that are performing in our operas. And they're going to remember that for the rest of their lives, right? And their parents are coming to see them. Their friends are coming to see them. Whether they go on to be opera singers or not, it doesn't matter. But what we're cultivating is our future generation and helping them be well-rounded, helping them develop an appreciation for the arts. So I think it's about knowing our market and really serving our market, not trying to compete with the oversaturation of the greater market, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I want to come back to the revenue sources. So you said 40% is tickets, right? Then what about other services that you offer while people are there? Me, when I went to the opera, there were drinks. Some people allow foods in, some people don't. Most don't, actually. I've been to various operas throughout South America, Buenos Aires, Mexico City, also in a bunch of them throughout the world, in Spain as well. I feel they could really much maximize the experience, whether it's an app that you could order foods or order like grander experiences. So what are your other sources of revenue?
Great question. So the difficulty for us is we're renting the venue, right? We don't own Dr. Phillips Center where we perform. So all of those food services, which Dr. Phillips Center offers, all of that money is going to them, right? And that's great on them, right? Now, we do put on performances outside of Dr. Phillips Center. For instance, this season, we're doing an opera at the Art and History Museum of Maitland. It'll be outdoors. The opera is Rusalka. It's the Little Mermaid story. And we will have food and drink served throughout the performance. So we're able to charge a little bit more because food and drink are included in the ticket price. And what's interesting in that model, Charles, because we're outside, we can't really have a full orchestra. We'll have a string quartet. We can't have a big production because the Art and History Museum is the set, right? It is the setting. They have this reflection pond where the mermaid will come out of the water. The architecture of the museum is our set. So the production cost is actually less for that production versus doing something at Dr. Phillips Center. And we're able to charge a little bit more because we're including wine, appetizers, desserts. So we come close to breaking even. Our ticket margin there is 75%. against the overall budget. So, and you're seeing that at some of these smaller companies like On-Site Opera in New York. That's all they do. They call it site-specific opera, where you do an opera in a building where the opera could have actually taken place. Whether it's a historic mansion or a museum. We've done that in the past by doing Girl of the Golden West, Puccini's cowboy opera. We did it at a saloon, Cheyenne Saloon in downtown, and that was great. People love that, right? It's a unique experience, and it's not as expensive, not as much risk. So we do a little bit of everything, right? We have to still do the grand opera, the big productions, but we try and get out in the community, do some smaller productions as well. And for those, we can add the food and the full experience, as you're mentioning.
Right. And as the director of the company, what are your main goals this year? How can you grow ticket sale, for example?
Yeah, one of our biggest goals was boosting our subscriptions, and our goal for that is 500. We're at 480 right now, and we just did our first production, Tosca. Now we're trying to encourage those people to convert their single ticket to become subscribers for the whole season. So that's our next campaign, right? They can convert that single ticket to a subscription ticket. But that's one of our goals. Another big goal for us is growing our endowment fund. The hope is to get it up to 10 million in the endowment fund, and then we would take 5% of that each year to help cover our operating costs. And as you can imagine, that would save us from having to go to our donors every year and say, hey, we need more donations if we can get the body, the corpus of our endowment up to 10 million. So those are our two big goals this year.
Pretty cool. And how do you attract like top customers, top donators? You mentioned to me that these events sometimes they're social gathering and people love to show their status and so forth. Just like in the old days, when kings would unite other kings and so forth, and it would be a nice form of entertainment and so show your level of sophistications. How can you attract more of these luxury oriented folks?
Yeah, opera is an interesting thing because it really is an art form for everyone. But there are certain people that like to show off at the opera. They like to dress up. They like to get the box seats. And it would be foolish of us not to give into that to some extent, right? So we do a big event every year. It's our gala, our big fundraiser, and it's called the Mozart Dinner. And we have Mozart there in costume. He's resurrected. We have a string quartet in, the Viennese style costumes of the 1800s. Full course dinner, candlelit, and we do it on the stage of Steinmetz Hall. We flatten the audience seats so they're level, so the donors feel like they're on stage, and it's $10,000 for a table, but these donors are willing to have that special experience, are willing to pay that and have this special experience. And then what's really cool, instead of doing the typical auction, with trips and cars or whatever, we do an auction of arias. So we just sell the song, right? We ask the audience, what song do you want to hear next? All right, but you have to bid on it to win it. So they'll bid $5,000, sometimes all the way up to $10,000 to hear Nessun Dorma or La Donna Immobile, And what's great about that is we have the singers right there. They get to hear their what they won in real time. And again, it's a unique experience that we're providing for them.
Right. Last but not least, Gabe, can you sing something for us today?
It would be my pleasure. I think the role that I have performed the most is Figaro. So here's a little bit of Figaro from Barber of Seville, Il Barbiere di Siviglia by Rossini. Figaro, 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 ahimè, che furia, ahimè, che voglia, uno alla volta, per carità, per carità, per carità.
Wow. Beautiful. I think my wife actually bought us ticket to the opera this weekend, so I absolutely need to go back. Like I said, it's really therapeutic for me. I just go there, and especially now there's so much noise in my brain, with like 15 to 20 calls a day at scale. It's quite intensive. So yeah, thank you for that gift, because art is gift, like music is gift. Visual art and paintings is the gift to the world and humanity, and people need more of that nowadays, as you have seen with like all the recent conflicts. Where can people find out more about you, Gabe?
Thank you for having me again, Charles. It's been a pleasure, and I agree with everything you said. Music is a gift, and we have to share it, right? If we don't share it, then it's not a gift. So please visit us at operaorlando.org, and all of our information is there on our website. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We are on TikTok. Watch out, world. We're on TikTok.
I'll listen to, I see you have your YouTube there, and some CDs too. So I'll try to listen there to your art. And yeah, obviously when I stop by in Orlando, I'll give you a ring, and we'll definitely go see the opera
Please
there.
do. We'd love
Thank
to give you a
you.
tour of the theater. Yeah, absolutely. Please
Yeah, it
come.
looks like an epic theater, by the way, for people. So I would encourage you to go check it out too. So thank you everyone for tuning in today. That was Charles Cormier, your host, and that was another CEO Wisdom Podcast.com with Gabriel Preisser.